We are talking about solving nonlinear systems and solving quadratic inequalities. In this case, we want to solve a quadratic inequality in one variable. So solve the quadratic inequality by graphing. So we have 2x squared plus 2x is less than or equal to 3. And in this case, whenever we have a quadratic equation or quadratic inequality, we want one side to be equal to 0. So in order for this side to be equal to 0, I want to subtract 3 from both sides of the inequality, and then we get 2x squared plus 2x minus 3 is less than or equal to 0. So there's a couple ways that we can solve a quadratic inequality or quadratic equation. One is factoring, and we can't factor this one. Another one is solving by the square root. This one, because we have this linear term, is going to be tough to do. And another option is the quadratic formula. So in order for that, we have to understand what our A, B, and C are. So A is equal to 2. B is also equal to 2. And C is equal to negative 3. So we get these values from that form of the inequality there. And then we can substitute those into the quadratic formula, which in this case is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times ac, all divided by 2 times a. So those are the things that always stay, and then we just have to substitute these values in. So negative b is negative 2, so we're going to substitute that in, negative 2. B is 2, so it's negative 2. And then 2 squared, and then minus, then we have our a value, which is going to be 2, and our c value, which is negative 3. So then we get x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 3 is positive 24. And we have the square root there. And that is all divided by 4. We can rewrite 4 plus 24, and that we can write as the square root of 28. And the square root of 28 can be written as the square root of 4 times 7. And that can be rewritten as 2 times the square root of 7. So we just rewrote what was under the radical there. And so we get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 7, all divided by 4. And another way that we can write that, because we can divide 4 into 2 and 4 into this 2, so we get negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 7 divided by 2. Now, we have two different zeros here, right? Because we have the plus and then we have the minus. So one of our zeros is going to be x equals negative 1 minus the square root of 7 divided by 2. And in that case, we're going to get x equals negative 1.82. And actually, I should say that's approximately, so we'll use the approximately sign. which is like 2 waves. And then the other option is we can have x equals -1 plus the square root of 7 divided by 2. And we type that in our calculator. We get x equals 0.82. And again, that's not equal to, that should be about equal to or approximately, because that's not going to be an exact answer. Now, in this case, we don't really care about the what's happening with the vertex, other than we need to know where it's located. So in this case, our a value is positive. So we understand that our parabola is going to open up like this. So we have the point x is -0.1.82. So here's -1, here's -1.82. It's not exact, but it is close. So if we're counting by ones. And then over here, this one is 0.82. So 0.82 is not quite to 1. And we understand that our graph is going to open like this. So we can just make a quick sketch. And we also know that the axis of symmetry is in the middle, so our vertex should be in the middle of these 2 points. Or about in the middle. So that's what the parabola, that's the sketch of the parabola there. Now there are 3 parts of the parabola. So we have part 1, and part 1 is this part over here, this branch over here. We have part 2, and doesn't have to be named in any specific order. Part 2 is this branch right here. And then part 3 is the part that includes the vertex. Okay. So this says, basically it says, when is the parabola less than or equal to 0? So we have the line y equals 0. Where does the line y equals 0 happen? And the place that happens is right at the x-axis, so right here. So that's y equals 0 right there. So when is this parabola less than 0? It says all of the spot parabola is less than 0. So part 2 over here, all of these parts of the parabola are y is greater than 0. Here y is 1, here y is 2, here y is 3. Those are all greater than 0. Here in part 1, y is 1, y is 2, y is 3, y is 4, y is 5, and everything in between, those are all greater than 0. So these parts are out. As we come down here, let's say that this is -0.5. This is -1.5. This is -2. This is -1.5. This is -0.5. All of these values from 0 all the way down to the vertex, every single point in between, these are all less than 0. So we can't just say that x is about equal to -1.82, and we have to include all of the points that are between -1.82 and 0.82. So we have to write it as an inequality. And so when we go to write that, basically all we have to do is say we have to start at our lowest value, which in this case is negative 1.82, which is right there. And then we have to go to our highest value, which is 0.82. And we have to account for every point in between. So then we want to say that x has to be somewhere between there. And it's got to be equal to, because it says equal to right there. So our solution for this is every single point where x is greater than negative 1.82 and x is less than 0.82. So that's all the x values through here. Any x value through from here to here, the y value will be less than 0.